The Buccaneers take down the Texans, and I'm telling you, this game had it all. Like Stefan from SNL. This game had some big plays. This game had some big defense. And most importantly, this game had epic ending. This is what we love. Houston falls to 0-2.
This game had
The
Baker
Bucs,
Mayfield doing a somersault.
it did. And all of us saying, Baker, what are you doing? Like we just talked about quarterback injuries. Like let's look at Baker for a second, because Baker, man, was delightful. But I'm telling you, Caroline, I'm just looking at it saying, protect yourself, brother. Like, protect yourself. I know you want to take down C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but come on, protect yourself. I was nervous.
It's fair to be nervous, but I think the nerves that you have about Baker Mayfield, maybe what we're all nervous about with Baker Mayfield, putting his body on the line and, basically picking himself up off the field just to talk some smack to CJ Gardner-Johnson, like those things, that fire from Baker Mayfield, I think is also what makes him great. Maybe his potential downfall is also what his greatest superpower is. And I look at Baker Mayfield and the performance that he had last night. And he did the thing that I think we talk about the best quarterbacks in the league doing. The Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons, the Patrick Mahomes, so on and so forth. He elevated his team around him and almost, it felt like single-handedly at times, willed his team to victory. Look, Chris Godwin is not out there on the field. They just got a new offensive coordinator. Liam Cohen is now in Jacksonville. There is a lot of turnover in Jacksonville. You bring in Emeka Egbuka. That's obviously a wonderful new pass-catching weapon for Baker Mayfield, but change at least in the offense. And Baker is still able to find ways to win football games. That's what great quarterbacks do. Even when the Houston Texans basically were gift wrapped 10 points from their special teams, Baker was still able to find a way to win that football game. So I get it. I hear you on, lower the shoulder, maybe slide every once in a while. That the grit and the toughness that he plays with is enough to make anybody just a little bit nervous about what that could mean about Baker Mayfield's availability for the greater part of 17 weeks. But I say, isn't that also what makes him great? That IDGAF attitude, that chip on his shoulder, the way he goes out there and plays with absolute reckless abandon when he goes into maniac mode. Isn't that is what is so fun to watch? Isn't that what makes Baker? And now Baker, I think we can confidently say, is a franchise quarterback in Tampa Bay.
I mean, the defining moment for me that answered any questions anybody could ever have on Baker. Not that I had any left, but when the Texans scored late in this game and took a 19-14 lead, they went for two. They didn't get it, right? So they take a 19-14 lead. My immediate thought was, yep, you let Baker too much time. Because they did. They left Baker the opportunity to get the ball back. And to think that that's where we are on Baker and that's where we are in this Bucs offense. And they did. They drove right down the field, which then leads to sort of the flip side of this, though, because I think if we're being fair here for a second, Caroline, like I'm looking at a Texans team that's now 0-2. And I'm looking at D'Amico Ryans, who's known for his defense, and how much of the broadcast did they spend talking to us about the fact that they have two elite pass rushers on that defensive line that can get after it. Derek Stingley Jr. in the backfield. Like the pieces are there. And I watched the Texans just find a way to melt away in this football game. And I kept looking around thinking, man, what the hell are we doing? Like when you start talking about the cornerstones of successful football teams, don't the Texans have the majority of those cornerstones all the way across on both sides of the ball? There's certainly enough talent for the Texans to be winning football games. And now they fall to 0-2 in a division where the Colts have surprised some people starting 2-0. Like I feel like the Texans are dug into a hole, and some of that feels self-inflicted. I wonder if maybe some of the shine has rubbed off on D'Amico and the Texans and part of what we expect from them, because it looks like they find ways to lose football games right now.
Going into this season, and I still think I can at least hold on to a little bit of hope, but it is dwindling. But going into this season, I had hope that 2023 CJ Stroud was still in there. That maybe 2024 last season was just a sophomore slump and the Texans were riddled with injuries, and this year was a get back and get right kind of year. But through two games, I don't really have anything to base that off of other than just pure, unadulterated hope. Because CJ Stroud looks like a shell of the offensive rookie of the year that we saw in 2023. That Somebody explain to me why we continue to run the football with Nick Chubb when he, at this point in his career, after two brutal injuries, is not going to be the cornerstone of any offense in the National Football League. I don't understand why at times the offense looks so incredibly stagnant. Look, the Bucs defense is good. It's not elite. It's no defense that should hold an offense with as many pieces as the Houston Texans offense has to 266 total yards. It's inexplicable to me, Fitz. And, I think in sports, credit and blame is incredibly important. You need to know who to give credit to, who to pay, who to invest into, and you need to know who to give the blame to. So at the end of the day, whenever there are changes that need to be made, you know who needs to be eliminated in order to make those changes. I don't know who to blame for this Texans offense. But when you look around and you see as much talent as there is, Nico Collins was a really, a wide receiver that I think that we had a lot to feel confident in. I mean, he was incredible in 2023 before he went down with that injury last season. You bring in Woody Marks from USC and Mississippi State. You draft a pair of wide receivers. Like, you're investing into talent offensively when the talent is there. At least we think it's there, especially with your young quarterback in CJ Stroud, and you fall short and your offense is stagnant and you can only put up really 9 points because essentially 10 of those points came from special teams, like I just said. So you essentially just put 9 points up against a good, not great defense. There's no one I can point to other than the coaching staff. The talent's there, the coaching's not.
And of those, when you talk about the points that came in, one was a right on the line. Oh my God, just an incredible catch by Nico. Like, I don't want to take anything away from that, but nothing was easy. And as you talk, I just keep thinking that at some level, when we look right now at the Texans, I think CJ Stroud has become the Macarena. Like, CJ Stroud right now looks like he's a hell of a lot closer to being a one-hit wonder than he is to being who we thought he was going to be. And
I was wondering where you're going with that.
Well, you're welcome. Hey, Macarena. No, I just think that it's some of this, we have to look at what we saw year one and then try and figure out what it actually means, the Baja Man. There is a level for me of, like, as great as Who Let the Dogs Out was, getting another Who Let the Dogs Out, not all that easy, right? Like, there is some level of what we saw from year one for CJ was historic. Our own Frank Schwab said at the time it was the best rookie season he'd ever seen from any quarterback. And I consider Frank to be one of the best historians of football I've ever worked with. So you think about how good CJ was his rookie year. Where's that gone? Because I mentioned earlier that at the end of the game, I thought, man, you let Baker too much time. There was never a point in this game where I thought, man, you're taking on CJ. You got to put more up. CJ's going to figure this out. Like, CJ Stroud right now just feels, in this offense, in this moment with this Texans team, he just feels like a guy. He doesn't feel like the guy anymore. He doesn't feel like he belongs in the same stratosphere of conversation of the way we talk about some of the other elite quarterbacks in the AFC. And that in and of itself, I think, is jarring. That in and of itself means the Texans got to look in the mirror and figure out what to do to get the most out of CJ, and also what responsibility they have for turning him into, I think at this point, a one-hit wonder. And part of that's the line play, part of that's the system. But, like, no matter how we got here, how many people today are sitting there saying, oh, damn, next week we got to play the Texans? I don't know. That's real.
Yeah. I mean, if 2 years ago me would have said this, I would have sounded like a big fat dumb doofus. But today, I think it is the clear and obvious take that if I am building a brand new football team, and my options at quarterback are Baker Mayfield or CJ Stroud, I am taking Baker Mayfield every single day and twice on Sundays. That Baker Mayfield has cemented himself, I think, as one of those guys that, look, it's 4th and 10. You need to score. The clock is winding down. Baker's got it. Baker's got it. And I don't think he is Josh Allen. I don't think he is Lamar Jackson, but that is the kind of Josh Allen-esque, Lamar Jackson-esque kind of feeling that we get from those elite quarterbacks. Again, I'm not saying he's in that tier, but we saw kind of glimpses of that last night. That's what I want in my starting quarterback. When I wake up on a Sunday and I turn on a Houston Texans game, I don't see that from CJ Stroud. I don't see that pop. I don't see that sizzle. I don't see that explosiveness offensively. And I think if the Houston Texans want to be a playoff team, there has to be some changes that are made. Because if the playoffs were tomorrow, the Texans are not a playoff team. At this point right now, through 2 games, now just through 2 games, the Texans do not look like a playoff team. In that division, the Colts are far better team through 2 games. They have looked like a much more explosive, competitive team than the Houston Texans have.
There's no doubt. Like right now today, if we had to pick based on what we've seen this year, the Colts look like they're going to win the South, and the Texans look like they're going to watch their playoffs like we do on their TV at home. I mean, I think that's a
Cancun on 3
statement. And 2 years ago, if you'd have gone to anybody and said, hey, you can start your franchise today with Baker or with CJ, who would you pick? When we were watching that rookie season 2 years ago, the answer was clear. The answer is equally clear now. It's just clear in a very different direction. And if your answer is the offensive coordinator around him or the offensive system around him just isn't good enough, blah, 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 I hear a little of that. But let's remember, last night, I'm looking at Twitter X react to the Bucs saying, oh, man, their offensive coordinator calling a great game. This is another great coach in waiting. Well, Canales has a job because of Baker. Liam Cohen has a job because of Baker. Baker Mayfield is the coach maker at this point, and that means something too. So no matter what system they want to put Baker in over the last 3 years, he continues to cook. So congratulations to the Bucs, big win. The Texans are going to have to try and figure out how they can move forward.